Hi, I'm Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast, and I took a left at the Valley.
Gotta love that voice.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from City, BC, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and once we are extinct, I hope aliens see our desolate landscape filled with Jesus' coming sign and assume he ate us. Joining me as usual is a team diagnosed with kleptomania, but don't worry, they're taking something for it.
So much.
She saw an attractive man spank his kid, so she said, "I'm next, Nancy."
Okay. But you have to call him Daddy.
Let's move right along.
She was sexually active at 9, now it's 9:45 and her wrist is killing her. Kristina.
Oh, that's so awkward.
And she thinks when Satan goes bald, they'll be hell to pay. Ladies, welcome back to another fun-filled adventure.
Is there a punitentiary where we can put this?
Yes, I probably deserve that.
Sorry, that was
A
really
long
high-pitched.
sentence.
Yes, very long sentence. Indeed.
Just not a run-on sentence.
Yeah.
So today we'll be talking to our old friend Brent Lee of Unapologetix, and we'll be talking about being raised and being homeschooled.
And I know a fuck ton
So
of
I
this.
can't wait to see you and him go at it.
Oh, we're just gonna... You might have to, actually, pull us back a bit, because we could probably talk days on this, because there's so much.
But first...
I'm just not angry yelling.
That's going to be on the second half of the show. But first, let's do a little bit of chit-chat. When I say fake news, you guys think of Donald Trump right away, right?
Of course.
And yeah, it's a moniker he's been using a whole lot. The funny thing is, Time Magazine, the magazine, Time Magazine, has asked Donald Trump to remove fake magazine covers of himself actually featured at his golf clubs.
It's about time.
He is so ridiculous.
I can't believe they waited till this long.
I know.
Me too,
Tell them to take them
actually.
down.
It's just amazing because this is actually the Washington Post that reported this. There's at least 5 properties of Trump where they got pictures of magazine covers where they have the face of Trump on the Time on the cover, and it's completely fake. And it's just amazing to me to see the man that is always saying, "Oh, fake news this, fake news that." Yeah, you're like the king of fake, dude. I can't believe that.
Exactly. He must have invented it.
Yeah, I find with Donald Trump, a lot of his...
It's all about his brand.
Well, a lot of things with him are projection. So a lot of the things he does, he will say other people do to almost make himself feel better because, everybody does it because I do it. And I can't think of a world where people think different than me.
Yeah.
Because he's so freaking narcissistic.
Exactly. I was about to say, you said it very well. He's a narcissist for sure.
Oh, he's like the literal definition.
The good news of the week, did you guys hear that Ethiopia actually broke the record to fight climate change?
I did. This made me so unbelievably happy.
And this is led by the Prime Minister, whose name I'm going to massacre here. I believe it's Abiy Ahmed. They shut down some of the offices of actually the government, and the public servants and some volunteers planted 350 million trees
Wow.
in one day.
That's insane.
How many
One
people did
day.
this? 350
we don't have
million trees?
Trees. Don't know how many volunteers and how many public sector servants did that, but it's a lot of people, obviously. The previous record, I think, was held by India, was something like 50 million. So they just blasted right out of the water.
That's dedication to a cause, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. The forest coverage of Ethiopia, in case you were wondering, was about 33%, and this was at the beginning of the 20th century. Now they have about 4% of all the original forests left.
So sad.
So, the goal apparently from the Prime Minister is to plant 4 billion trees. So he's well on his way to reaching that goal. So good for them. That's that's an example that a lot of countries should do.
Like Brazil.
Yes.
Get on your shit, Brazil.
I wonder how they're going to tend all those trees to make sure they sprout.
I'm sure of all the trees they plant, there's going to be a percentage that won't take, that will die, or will be eaten by animals or something like that.
Yeah.
But even if you manage to score a tenth of your 4 billionth, you're still talking about a lot of trees.
Yeah, no, I just wondered about the next step because
and
that's
especially
a huge investment.
Especially if they don't just stop.
Yeah, exactly.
If they continue even
4 billion trees, that's a lot of trees.
1,000 trees a day.
Yeah.
Like
you keep going at it, absolutely.
Have it as a pastime. Let's go plant some trees.
Well, speaking of climate change, the bad news is there's a new report that says by 2100, the U.S. will face 127 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that's 52 degrees Celsius.
I'm sorry, what?
That is disgusting.
This was done for National Geographic. 250 American cities will face at least 1 month where the temperature will rise above 100 degrees. Historically, only 29 cities in the U.S. are facing that kind of temperature on a regular basis. Some of the southern cities, the very sunny
Phoenix,
cities.
Arizona.
Phoenix, that kind of stuff, right? Well, now 250
I've been
American
to Phoenix
cities.
when it was 120.
So imagine something like Seattle being in that category, for example.
Yeah.
Kill me now,
Just
please.
shows you that cities that are not used to this kind of temperature, facing this all of a sudden, just shows you the extent of the urgency of this problem.
Oh, yeah, I was in Dallas. I lived in Dallas for a long time, and, this time of year, 110
It hits 30 degrees for me,
usual.
and I cry.
Exactly, same here.
Yeah. I don't even know what 30 degrees is in Fahrenheit, but it makes me cry.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, 30 degrees, I think so. Something like 90,
Yeah.
Not even 100, and I'm crying.
Yeah.
No, stop.
It's really disturbing. Speaking of our American friends, did you guys hear that there's been a lot of caravans from the U.S. coming to Canada to buy medicine? They've been doing this in droves, apparently.
Because we have a reasonable healthcare system.
Yeah.
That isn't stupid.
Apparently, for example, a lot of it deals with people that are diabetic. And insulin is about apparently
It's
tenth of the price what they're paying down there.
Well, people are having to ration their insulin.
Yeah, and I totally
Medicine
understand.
that you need on a regular basis to keep you alive.
And I totally understand why they do this. And actually, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, presidential hopeful, actually did that as well. He actually joined and put the spotlight on this. Now the U.S. government is actually saying, yeah, we're going to talk with the Canadian government to buy and negotiate and buy Canadian medicine.
Fucking
There's just one
hypocrites.
thing they don't really think about in all this. Have they asked Canadians how they feel about this? Because it's not like it's an endless supply. Health Canada has basically said, we don't have enough to cover all Canadians and an American market.
I don't know how they're going to work that out, but years ago when the drug prices were rising, but before Obamacare, and people were coming up, they were either going to Canada or they're going to Mexico to get them, and the pharmaceutical company kept saying, they're tainted drugs. You can't trust them. They're cheap prices
which is
because
bullshit,
they're
of course.
knockoffs.
Yeah.
And
Which
they
complete
created so many lies. But people were smarter than that, and they realized we don't see the Canadians dying off.
Yeah, exactly.
They
have a better
pretty
lifespan.
healthy. Yeah, they have a pretty good lifespan. We don't see the Mexicans dying off because of their medication.
Especially when you realize
I
we
think
live longer.
I think there's a resurgence of them coming up now. How they're going to do that and negotiate the pricing up here, for the U.S. Traffic. I don't know.
This has been all over talk
they
radio.
will figure it out.
This has been all over talk radio all week, actually.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not scientific at all, what I'm saying here. I don't have numbers to back this up. But if I'm going by what the public is saying and what I'm hearing on the radio, Canadians are not for this. And the answer is basically, you know what? If the roles were reversed, you think Trump would be coming to our aid with this? He'd be saying, fuck you. And that's what the reaction of a lot of average Canadians seems to be right now. And I can't really blame them for saying that, especially in light of Health Canada saying we don't have enough. And this is where trade agreements become important.
Yep.
There are some...
How's those trade wars going for you,
exactly,
Trump?
right? Exactly. And there are some quotes in some clauses in NAFTA that deals with these kind of things. Now, don't quote me here. We'd have to talk to our friend Paul Manley for that. But I believe there's some things like, for example, oil and water. There are actually some provisions where Canadians actually don't necessarily have first dibs on the product, and could be the same thing for medicine as well. I don't know. We need an expert, but this is going to be something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on, because if Americans are coming up here, and I understand why they want to do this, if they're coming up here all of a sudden for medicine tourism, if we can call it that, that might actually endanger our own supply, and I think there'd be a bit of a backlash.
Yeah, I don't know, because when I lived in Texas and then lived on the border, and people would go. We lived on the border of Progreso, Mexico, that was right across the border, and the snowbirds from Texas were down there in the wintertime, and the traffic going over to Progreso and all the border cities really to buy meds and to get good dental care, which they could get, was amazing. You've never seen so many seniors in your life, and bringing them back across the border wasn't a problem. There are things that you couldn't bring. You couldn't bring opioids, and you couldn't bring the diet pills.
Maybe you're right. Maybe this will start a new industry.
Mexico never ran out. I guarantee you. You had to be careful, because there were the high quality drugs that were manufactured by the American companies in Mexico, and then there were the knockoffs. So you really had to be careful. But they never missed a beat.
Okay, well.
So if they've worked it out, Canada will be able to do the same.
I hope you're right.
I also would wonder, in America right now, why are their prices so high for insulin? Is it artificially inflated, or so like that? That's one thing that America has to do, instead of just buying things from us that are cheaper. Fix your issue home,
I totally
so that
agree.
it doesn't just multiply. But the pharmaceutical companies have never liked the negotiating process for meds. They do, I think, for the VA, the Veterans Administration, but for everybody else, they don't want to negotiate. So they
get your Medicare
prices
for all, guys.
artificially
Healthcare
high.
It seems hard for us to comprehend why Americans are so against this whole universal healthcare thing.
It's literally mind-boggling.
Yeah,
for
I mean, I try to explain to Americans as it's like going to Costco. You're buying in bulk. This is essentially what you're doing, right? Instead of buying retail individually, each one of you guys are getting a big group and you're buying your health care in bulk.
And the big group literally is 300 million people.
Exactly. Exactly.
It gets spread out so easily.
Exactly.
And then you aren't paying $1,000 a month for your copay or whatever.
Heaven forbid should you have a child.
People pay more for their health care than they do for rent, food.
Oh, it's insane.
Everything combined. And they don't have enough for the rent, food, and that. So they're okay, do I survive this month? Or do I have a house to live in?
Yeah,
guess I have to live in my car now.
Yeah, it's gotten somewhat better because of Obamacare.
Yeah.
And it's got somewhat affordable. But even so, I have a friend who has cancer, and the pill that would put her in remission was $1,400 a month.
That's
and finally she got some subsidies and some help, so she pays $60 some odd dollars a month for the pill, and she's in remission and her energy is back. But I think of all of the people who didn't have those kind of contacts and weren't able to do it, and they're suffering. They go through chemo, and the chemo doesn't do any good. And where are they going to get $1,400 a month for a pill?
Yeah. And
they have to take every day.
Let me just say to all the American listeners right now, in Canada, I do not know one person who has medical bankruptcy.
Exactly.
Not one.
No.
I can't think of one person that I've even heard of, a friend of a friend. Literally, almost no one has medical bankruptcy.
No, I've never seen that happen.
Yeah. Healthcare for everybody works.
It's not a perfect system. Our system is far from perfect.
Well, yeah, you do end up with long wait times.
Sometimes.
Because the people who need it the most get it first.
You have to be careful when you say long wait time, It's not like, my arm gets cut off and I get to wait.
Well, yeah.
Right? It's just like the more urgent the operation, you get pushed in front of the line.
Yeah.
But if you have a stubbed toe, you're probably going to wait a bit.
Yeah. And if I go to a walk-in clinic, half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Hour is hours like, okay, I may have been here for a while.
I've never personally, not I had much health issues, but I've never had to wait for anything.
Yeah.
You've been lucky. I could talk on the other side of that.
I'm sure.
For a while.
I'm sure.
Too. But I'm sure that.
But
I have confidence.
You've seen both sides of the
I've
equation
seen both,
because you still have your American citizenship.
Well, I deal with both sides.
Exactly.
Because I have some of my medical care on the Canadian side, and I have some of my medical care on the U.S. side.
In your situation right now, if the situation happened, I said, Nancy, you have to pick one system. Yeah. Which one would you pick?
The U.S. side.
Really?
Yeah.
You would pick the U.S. side?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because but it depends. If it has to do with major medical, where I need surgery, even though it might be an elective surgery, for instance, if you have a rotator cuff repair, and you have to wait 18 months for a rotator cuff repair, your arm deteriorates.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's very difficult, and you end up being worse off when you finally have the surgery. If you can go down to the States and have it done within a month and be able to get physical therapy and get your arm movement back, what am I supposed to do? Wait or be able to take advantage?
Totally understandable.
It works. However, for everyday care, for colds and upsets and things like that, no problem. I'm up here. I have my doctor up here that I've had for 20 years, and but it is so unusual, I think, to be able to have that advantage.
You have the best of both worlds.
I have the best of both worlds, and I treasure the fact that I do.
Yeah.
But I use each side depending on what my needs are.
That's very interesting.
And I definitely think the reason for those specialist long wait times are because if you need the surgery, you can go and wait for it. You can get in the lineup for it. You don't have to worry about, I can't ever get this surgery because it will cost too much money.
Yeah.
Because in America, you do get people who are like, I can just never get this surgery because it'll cost too much money.
But you have to realize that by waiting, your situation could worsen.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that's something that, if there were better management of the funds and the facilities, and there were more doctors, there were more specialists, that would be taken care of.
Because there are some absolutely stupid things our medical system does. Especially for our very local, what they did to the Mission Hospital was the stupidest thing on the actual planet.
Okay, perfect. Moving on. Because we're not going to spend all show on this. We could.
To be honest, the Mission Hospital is a stopping point.
Yes.
Getting really local stiff.
Last but certainly not least, you guys hear that Trump was in the Rose Garden this past week, and he was talking about a bill that was supporting the first responders of 9/11.
Yeah.
This is the bill that was pushed by Jon Stewart.
And then the dude didn't pass it, and everyone's like, "Are you actually
exactly?"
Joking?
So they finally passed it. So these first responders are finally going to get the Medicare that they need, and that's good news.
A little late for some.
But being Trump, he couldn't help but making it about himself. When he started, he stated that he spent a lot of time with 9/11 responders at Ground Zero.
Oh, so much time.
And then the internet lost it. And it prompted, which is going to be our favorite game show of the week, and it's going to be, hashtag Lost Trump Stories.
Da-na-na-na.
All right. Congratulations. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? We should really pay homage to the man, the legend that is Donald Trump.
He's almost as prolific in his adventures as Nancy.
Absolutely. He's a close second.
Careful with the comparison.
So I think that this man has been getting a bad rap. Even us on the show, we've been kind of bashing on him, and not realizing that the man is so prolific in so many ways. So let's maybe pay a bit more attention to what Donald Trump has done. Trump received the Purple Heart for not contacting an STD during the Vietnam War. Hashtag Lost Trump
heroic.
History.
Okay.
Anybody else has got some?
Well, apparently, Trump painted the Mona Lisa, but he decided to give it away because she just wasn't his type.
Hashtag Lost Trump History.
Yep.
How about Trump discovered windmill cancer, but doesn't consider himself a doctor? Hashtag Lost Trump History.
Or, in 2019, astronomer Donald Trump discovered that the moon was a part of Mars. Hashtag lost Trump history.
Did you guys also know that Trump helped Wyatt Earp defeat the outlaws in Tombstone? But he doesn't consider himself a sheriff. Hashtag
So nice
lost
of
Trump
him.
history.
And apparently, Trump was the first to summit Mount Everest. But he was robbed of that distinction by some crooked person called Hillary.
And
Lost Trump history.
Trump invented the airplane and made the first powered flight in 1903. And then dubbed the Wright brothers losers and total hacks. Hashtag lost Trump history.
How about Trump was the fifth Beatle, and he called Paul McCartney a loser, and so he left so not to upstage him. Hashtag
Lost
Trump
Trump
history.
Did you guys also know that Trump gave Ronald Reagan the courage to face Gorbachev when they met so they could tear down the Berlin Wall? But he doesn't consider himself a diplomat. Hashtag lost Trump history.
Oh my gosh. Trump built Noah's Ark and made the Croatians pay for it. Hashtag lost Trump history.
I'd almost believe that one.
Yeah.
Oh. Got some more?
Trump wanted White Star not to use cheap materials on the Titanic. They didn't listen, so he mounted a rescue. Hashtag Trump lost history.
Trump flew the Revolutionary War airplanes while troops stormed the ramparts and carried Ben Franklin to loser France.
Oh my god.
Hashtag lost Trump history.
And finally, Trump helped build the Great Wall of China, and it was a huge success at keeping the Mexicans out.
Unparalleled success.
Well, thank you so much for playing our hashtag Lost Trump history game. I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah, send it. If you think of some, send them along.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll read 'em.
You need some more? Just
Yeah.
send them our way. We'll read them on the air. Oh, that was awesome. All right, back to seriousness.
Wait,
When are we ever serious?
Fair enough.
Wait a minute, what is seriousness? Wait.
My dear Nancy.
We need to
Harry
be
Potter's
trained.
My dear Nancy. You got a top 10 for us this time?
I do.
All right.
I do. This is kind of frivolous because this time of year you kind of would like to curl up with something cold to drink and a nice parasol shading you, and you want to just be able to sit and read and just not strain your mind, just do something interesting, learn something fun. So here's a
wanna
list
do
of
that.
books that you may not be aware of to sit and read in your backyard
Okay.
or the cottage or between podcasts.
Yes.
Okay, so the first, and some of these are you may not have heard of. They're not current books, all of them, but there's some that
Summer reading material. Top 10 summer reading material.
The first one is called Thunderstruck by an author whose name is Eric Larson.
Say AC/DC?
Yeah, Eric Larson wrote a really good book about the World's Fair in Chicago, in, I think the late 1800s, and it was the White City Murderer, and it was an excellent book. This one called Thunderstruck pulls together Marconi, who invented the radio, and a killer, supposed killer, in London called Hawley Harvey Crippen. And his name has been pretty used in a lot of different kind of media because the case was so interesting. And basically what it was is he was accused. Crippen was a homeopath from the United States living in London, and he was accused of murdering his wife. And he took off with his lover before they could find anything in his home. And he took his lover with him on a ship headed for Quebec. Oh. And the captain kind of thought there was something suspicious because he dressed his lover as his son. Right there was a... And the reason Marconi comes into it is that this was an era where the first ship-to-shore communications were being used that were invented by Marconi. So the captain was able to notify the Scotland Yard, and Scotland Yard Inspector Dawes got on a ship that was faster then the one Crippen was on, and so when they got to Quebec, he was arrested. But this was the first, first arrest in history that was used. This is like, Twitter.
Exactly.
Everybody knew about it, and it was being broadcast, on land, but Crippen never knew it.
That's amazing.
It's a wonderful book. I haven't read it, but the author is terrific. It's called Thunderstruck. So that's the first one. It's bizarre. The whole thing about Crippen is bizarre, especially when they discovered the body and who was actually who that body was that they discovered. Interesting.
Have to read it and find out.
Yeah. Number 2 is a book called Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee.
I sense a theme.
Before
Murder
Harper Lee
mysteries.
did To Kill a Mockingbird, she tried to write a book that had to do with a murder done by a Reverend Willie Maxwell. And he was accused of murdering 5 people for insurance purposes. And she tried to write this book because she was fascinated by it, but it never really got any place. So the book is all about how these things came together and what problems she had writing the book. Yeah, that's a cool one. Number 3, Catch-22. Did anybody ever read Catch-22?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
It was George Clooney bought the anti-war allegory. It was written by Joseph. It is written by Joseph Heller, and the Catch-22 has to do with war and being able to declare yourself insane to get out of the service and other things. So this is even though George Clooney has the rights to do 6-episode
miniseries
series for Hulu, the book is amazing. It's very strange.
There's a chapter
really
on bone
strange.
spurs.
Pardon?
Wonder if there's a chapter on bone spurs.
It could be.
Get yourself out of the military. I hear it works.
There's another hashtag Trump we want to turn into. Anyway, Catch-22, it's been around, I think, 30, 35 years, maybe a little, even more than that, but certainly worth reading if you hadn't. This is a kind of fun book. It's called The Lady from the Black Lagoon by Mallory O'Meara, and it has to do with... not the creature from the Black Lagoon, who we all know,
of
that
course.
story.
Went to school with him.
This is the lady from the Black Lagoon who did the makeup, and it has to do with what the special effects were like and what she had to go through and what the process was. So if you're interested in how those work,
back then that makeup was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. So this has to do with sexism and
that you can compare it to how it's changed to nowadays. So not at all.
Yeah, exactly. So
we've made strides.
Yeah, well, the lagoon might not be as black as it used to be.
Exactly.
It might have been cleaned a bit. Creature's still in there somewhere.
Yeah. Number 5
He has
is
orange
called,
hair now.
Yeah, number 5 is called Your Life is Mine by Nathan Ripley. And this has to do with a famous cult leader who went on a shooting rampage in the 1990s. And his daughter, whose name was Blanche Potter, tried hard to distract herself from that time, but then her mother was killed. She goes home. It has to do with a lot of thrillers, and Nathan Ripley is a Canadian.
Cool.
This isn't based
writer.
on David Koresh, is it?
Yeah, actually, his real name is Nabin Rothwam.
Okay.
But he uses Nathan Ripley as a pseudonym.
But the story is not based on the Waco and the...
No. This is based on a Canadian guy whose last name was Potter.
Okay.
So this has to do with how the daughter manages and her life after that.
Okay.
That sounds like a really interesting read. Very psychological.
Yeah, really psychological. Number 6 is Assassination Vacation.
Hey,
Love the title.
It's
I
your
know.
story.
Yeah, I was thinking. Wait a minute.
The Nancy Way story.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Did I give this person a permission to use my the title of my book that's coming out? No. But this is Sarah Vowell is an American Life contributor, and she goes into the history of 3 presidential assassinations: William McKinley, James Garfield, and Abraham Lincoln. And so she, looks at all of them and goes into some depth. And it's supposed to be really straightforward, but there's a lot in there that is also, believe it or not, kind of irreverent.
Didn't put anything about JFK in there?
No.
Ian McKinley, Lincoln. It stopped
No,
at Lincoln.
William McKinley. Before that, William Garfield and
Garfield,
Lincoln,
McKinley,
all the earlier ones. So, but I like Assassination Vacation. I mean, it's kind
a
of
good title.
It's got a nice ring to it.
I was going to say that could be maybe a theme. So we should get somebody to write them.
If you're climbing on board a cruise ship and you see Nancy climbing on board that ship, there's something afoot there, guys. Just to let you know.
Assassination Vacation. Yeah, exactly. Number 7, Maid. Hard work, low pay, and a mother's will to survive. That's a title by Stephanie Land, and this is a true account of her tenure as a housekeeper, and it gives a lot of light on how overworked people are and how underpaid, and all of the financial problems that people have when they work an awful lot for people that can afford to pay them more and yet don't. And so how they struggle. This is an interesting title too. Number 8, Soul of an Octopus by
That
Cy
sounds
Montgomery.
amazing.
And actually, this is about octopi or octopuses. And actually, believe it or not, many people consider them to be the most intelligent, creative, and fascinating.
They're
Who knew?
amazing.
This is written by a naturalist. Cy Montgomery's a naturalist, and he actually got up close and personal with octopuses at Boston's New England Aquarium and in Polynesia. So a lot of science, but a lot of looking into the mind of the octopus.
They can problem solve like nothing else.
Philosophical questions about octopuses. So anybody who's
think of that next time you eat calamari, guys.
These
These little smart suckers.
Yeah. It sounds like it would be, kind of an interesting, especially if you're into animal behavior, which, a lot of people are. Okay, number 9, The Ghosts of Eden Park by Karen Abbott. This is in the early 1920s. The guy who is the protagonist is named George Remus. He had everything. He had a wife. He had everything. He had a mansion. He had everything he wanted, and then he went into bootlegging, and then by 1921 he owned 35% of the alcohol. He didn't drink, but he hosted a lot of parties, and then there was a murder, and it gets really murky after that. But it's a strange but true story about George Remus and what happened, and the alcohol and all of the things that went along with Prohibition. So it's coming out this month. So if that's a book that you like.
I'm excited.
Yeah, very good. Karen Abbott.
I will definitely take a look at that one.
Okay. Number 10, I'm going to give one bonus one that sounded really interesting. But number 10 is Theodore Roosevelt for the Defense. And I didn't know that Theodore Roosevelt was actually charged.
Wait,
and
seriously?
Had to had a trial. But in 1915, the Republican Party boss William Barnes accused Theodore Roosevelt of libel, and so in the Dan Abrams and David Fisher weave the history of law into what is supposed to be a really delightful and compelling case. Who knew?
He was quite the character, so that'd be very interesting to see how he portrays.
Yeah, with Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah,
the bull moose.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the last one, and it was way down the list, but I found it more interesting than some of the ones that didn't make the top. That did make the top 10. This is called Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup.
Ooh, that sounds so interesting.
Yeah, this is an author whose name is John Carreyrou, Carreyrou, and there was a biotech startup called Theranos, and it was really, humming along. It seemed like it was too good to be true. What it started up for was promising a state-of-the-art process to expedite and improve blood testing for hundreds of millions of people.
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, but the founder, whose name was Elizabeth Holmes.
I've totally heard of this. She's insane.
She was the one.
She is like lying about everything, but just so calm and collected, because it's really crazy when you watch her, because she very much tried to emulate Steve Jobs. She'll wear the same kind of clothes, and And it's funny because she even fakes her voice. Like, she puts on this really low, kind of gravelly voice, but then there's some times in interviews where you're watching her, and it'll, like, pop up to a really high, like, higher voice, like a normal person, and you're like, what is going on?
Oh, you're getting the book, I can tell.
Well, no, I've watched a documentary about her.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that it really sounded fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very similar.
She's a bit of a psychopath.
Very much. It's very similar to what happened with Fire Festival. It's very similar. It's just how they can be they can lie about everything, but wow, people who can kind of, the things that you look for in a person to tell if they're lying, such as nervousness, like shifty, like uncomfortableness, like they just do not portray, because they're like creating another world while they're talking, so they believe what they're saying is true on a weird level. It's very interesting.
It's fascinating to see how many psychopaths have come into success, which almost makes you wonder, is empathy really a detriment to being successful?
Sometimes.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, being too human makes you less successful of a person.
It very much depends how you consider success. If you consider success money, then
yes,
100%.
I absolutely agree with you.
Psychopaths have a leg up.
If you consider manipulating your way to the top, you can't have any empathy.
Which is scary, because that's the world we live in.
If you consider success like a personal acceptance and like comfortable in your own skin, then psychopaths do not have that. Anyone with narcissism does not have that, because narcissism, you can't be happy with yourself.
I have a relationship with Jesus. Does that work?
No.
No.
No, it doesn't.
So, Kevin, what book are you looking forward? What's your next read?
Oh my God, are you kidding? I'm still trying to go through the list of everything.
But what's the next one?
Oh,
I know what's top of the list.
Right now, I'm going through David Fitzgerald, Mythicist about Jesus.
Do you want to know
Jesus mything in action?
Do you want to know a book I would suggest everybody read if they haven't read it already, especially in our current political climate? 1984.
Yep.
It will make you see the Donald Trump administration in such a different light, and see his little lies as so much more important as people portray them to be, and his mischaracterization of everything. It will make you see how much that leads to fascism.
Okay, perfect.
Kirsten, what's your next read?
My next read that I'm planning is Shadow Wars.
Whoop whoop.
Yes, of course, with David Fitzgerald. But as much as I'd like to get into that, we're way behind the schedule. So, my dear Kirsten, you get another brilliant moment for us?
I do.
Perfect. Brought to you by religion.
So, Rochester Cathedral, England's second oldest cathedral, is trying to get more young people to enter their building. And how might you guess they are doing this? Just give a wild guess. How do you think they're doing it?
Getting more young people.
Twitter.
I was going to say brute force, but that doesn't matter.
That was the old way. They don't do that
Let's see. Free food.
No.
That'll load.
Rock and roll party.
Free internet.
No. And no.
Coffee.
Snacks. They're replacing... They're replacing the pews with a 9-hole miniature golf course. At least for a few weeks.
Okay, why don't you just replace your uncomfortable ass pews with something comfortable for my Netflix generation?
Well, you could do a 9-hole putter while he's doing a service.
Just like a hole-in-one for Jesus.
Yeah, look at that.
The golf course will be there until September 1st, and each hole includes a small bridge as part of the ball's pathway. That's because the course was paid for by the Rochester Bridge Trust, though the church officials say it's a metaphor for how people need to form emotional and physical bridges.
Okay.
Yeah, wow. you hit it between the guy's legs over there. That's just
wow.
But there are plenty of critics who see this as blasphemy.
Of course.
Reverend Rachel Phillips, or I probably am pronouncing that incorrectly, potentially. Maybe. I don't know.
You said it was in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Was it in Scotland?
That's Phillips.
Well, no, Phillips, the first name.
Rachel, yeah, that's
Rachel. Yeah, Rachel. Anyways, Canon for Mission and Growth at Rochester Cathedral said, "We hope that, while playing adventure golf, visitors will reflect on the bridges that need to be built in their own lives and in our world today."
Yeah, like the bridge is like logic and reason.
A visitor to the cathedral said, "It's really nice for children to come here, be able to see the history of the cathedral and have fun."
Just don't leave them alone with the priest.
Exactly.
Seems now a true Christian now needs to know how to putt.
The Right Reverend Dr. Gavin Ashenden, Bishop of the Anglican Episcopal Church, said, "I'm afraid I think it's a really serious mistake, perhaps born of desperation."
No shit.
Well, they hit that nail on the head. Mm-hmm. The idea that people are so trivial that they can almost be tricked into a search for God by entertaining them with a golf course is a serious category error.
We are pretty easily entertained sometimes.
We are. Of course it's a trick, but considering the other ways religions try to get you in the door, an innocent golf course is hardly a bad trick.
I'm just wondering, do they give you a different golf club depending on your tithe, right? If you give like $20 to give you a 3-iron.
No, these are for people that aren't in the church. They're trying to bring them in.
Yeah, they're trying to lure them in with mini putt.
Yeah. I still think it would work better if they gave them a shake and bake coupon.
I don't know what would
probably would.
I mean, what would you rather do on Sundays? Sit and listen to a sermon or play miniature golf?
Miniature golf, obviously.
Yeah, but the problem is every obstacle in there is going to have like some kind of Jesus thing.
But you could just...
Jesus riding the dog.
They're all bridges.
No. I just had the best idea. We could go off course and aim for Jesus' head.
Yeah.
It could like...
Bank off Jesus' head.
Exactly. It could be the atheist version. And just don't aim for the hole. Aim for the head.
I mean, I'm sorry. There's no logical way...
Aim for the hole in the hands.
There's absolutely no way... No way to transition from golf to church to religion. It makes no sense.
Well, if you did that, maybe Tiger...
Which is great, because...
Maybe Tiger Woods can become a prophet.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
What's weird is how they think people will come in to play the holes and then stick around for the damnation.
Especially when they have such uncomfortable pews.
Yeah.
Have you ever sat in one of those things?
Yes.
It hurts.
I sat on those for years.
Like, God damn.
I've done it once.
A cushion.
Think of this as a movie. What would happen if overnight all the churches turned into playgrounds and
paintball arenas,
miniature golf and basketball and ice skating? That's it. There was no more religion, only entertainment.
Well, it would basically mean that it's not just a choir of boys that we get fondled.
Oh no!
It'd be all the kids at that point.
She's meaning like there's no religion at all involved. There's no bishops. There's no priests. You take a mega church, you destroy it, you raze it to the ground, and you put an ice rink or like a community center with a basketball court.
It would basically mean that finally your tax money is going to something nice.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it would make a great movie. I mean, it's just like overnight.
That would be a great movie, actually.
Yeah, a different kind of rapture. The rapture you weren't expecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, wouldn't they be surprised.
That would be... Could you imagine what would actually happen in a rapture? The world would suddenly get really, really nice.
You know what I want to do? I want to buy hundreds of inflatable doll and fill them with helium and let them go. And see what the Christians think it's a rapture.
Somebody beat you to that one.
Wait, seriously?
It's happened.
What? Somebody did that?
There have been Christians that have seen inflatable dolls and thought they were angels.
Oh my God. Stupid people.
All right. So let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be with Brent Lee of Unapologetix.
To hear us mindly scream.
So stay with us.
Who knows? He might have had a good childhood.
Ooh.
Hi, I'm God, and I just want to make sure to tell you not to listen to Unapologetix on Stitcher and SoundCloud. That's Unapologetix with an X at the end. But, definitely do not listen to the show. I mean, I swear to me, alright, I will murder my son. I kind of already did that, but just don't listen to the show, okay? Hey, Lucy.
Can you not call me that, okay? We already went over what my name is, okay? It's Lucifer.
Alright, look, Luce. You wanna come with me? I'm gonna go fuck with this guy, Joe.
don't do that, okay? Can you just leave him alone?
Yeah, I'm gonna kill his family.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna give him sores all over his body.
Don't do that. That's disgusting.
And I'm gonna kill all of his livestock. You know.
Stop saying things. Just stop.
And I'm gonna blame the whole thing on you. All right, let's go, bud. Remember, don't listen to Unapologetix on Stitcher and SoundCloud.
Hey, definitely listen to that show. It's awesome. It's really cool. He's really a dick.
I heard that.
Interested in a particular topic? You ever wonder where we find all this information?
The Common Sense Canadian is a forum for critical discussion of the key issues shaping our world today: water, energy, food security, and how we manage our resources to the public benefit while preserving our environment. So go to commonsensecanadian.ca. It's uncommonly sensible.
The problem is that whenever somebody seriously represents his belief that Elvis is still alive in a conversation, on a first date, at a lecture, at a job interview, he immediately pays a price. He pays a price in ill-concealed laughter.
Right. Now, surely you can agree with
that is a good thing. Now, then he could rattle on about this is not a scientific claim. This is a matter of faith. You know, when I look at you, I see you might be Elvis. I mean, he could do this.
Is a returning champion. He is one of the co-hosts of Unapologetix, and the fact that Nikki keeps him at bay makes sure it just dignifies that she's a saint. He's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Brent Lee is back with us. Hey, Brent, how you doing?
Hello. Hey, I actually am a snazzy dresser now. It's all because of Nikki, though. You made me. I had to grow up.
No more socks and sandals.
I know my dad did that one time. I was so embarrassed.
It was like the thrift store closed all the way. That's not.
Nice. No, I can go one better. My husband, bless his heart, used to wear shorts with socks and cowboy boots.
Oh my God!
So
good
socks
Lord.
and sandals are that's a notch ahead in the fashion forward.
Was he wearing the hat at least?
Occasionally.
Yeah, there we go.
I'd ask, how tall were the socks?
How tall were the
How
socks?
tall were the socks?
Knee high.
Up to the top of the cowboy boots, so that you know he was wearing them.
You don't want chafing.
That's right.
Like halfway to the kid in Big Daddy when he was being Frankenstein or whatever.
I used to. I'm so really bad at my clothing. I used to have a girlfriend that used to label all my shirts with letters and all my pants with numbers. And when somebody would ask me, "What are you wearing?" I said, "I don't know, B12."
Oh my God!
Oh wow!
Perfect.
Back on track.
5 points for me, Brent.
Yes, sir.
You're a returning champion on the show, and we love having you, of course. But maybe some of our listeners did not catch you, so maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who you are and what is Unapologetix.
So Unapologetix is a show that me and my girlfriend Nikki do. We've been together a while. I became an atheist 2 years ago. She didn't become an atheist until about a little under 2 years ago. It took some. She did the show even though she wasn't an atheist, but she enjoyed all the content. And we just talk about basically just all sorts of humanist stuff. We're very far left. I myself am an homeschooled, heavily indoctrinated Christian that stuck with that, and then went super right wing for a while, and met Nikki, who was awesome, and brought me over to understanding how other people's experiences are. And how important that is to understand.
Perfect. Well, speaking of being indoctrinated in homeschool, well, we kind of have the same thing right here with our little pet project, Kristina. So I guess I should ask both of you guys. How would you describe that? I know it's a broad thing, but okay. That was easy. Thank you for coming, Brent. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
That answers everything.
It's interesting because for me personally, I have a very different look now versus when I was in it.
Okay, well, let's start maybe from the very basic here. Your family, what denomination were they from?
Well, we went to a Mennonite church.
Okay, Mennonite.
But I wouldn't classify them as Mennonite.
It's like
wait, you guys don't know what Mennonite is?
Mennonite is pretty close to Amish.
No. Well, exactly, but we weren't like crazy Mennonite because Mennonites, like, you have to wear the long skirts.
Yeah.
And because my parents, before I was born, were actually in a cult.
Yeah.
The long distance cult, but it was a homeschooling cult. I totally forget what it's called.
Okay.
But it's super popular in the States.
Okay.
Really?
I should write a book about you.
And how about you, Brent?
I was raised a non-denominational Christian, which doesn't sound. I mean, and I don't even know if we adopted because it was like we got into the Calvary Chapel movement, but that seemed that's like after I was already in homeschooling and everything, and we went to a Wesleyan church for a bit. But we were very evangelical. That's the best really term for it. Really, it's like super evangelical, and it was very similar to what she was saying about the long skirts and everything. I mean, we were homeschooled. It was like that was all the other families and stuff.
You can tell because you see around here, especially when you go around the Chilliwack area, you can tell some of the older women, senior women, and they still have the long flowing skirt, and they still have a kind of almost like a yakima.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
Like the weird hat thing.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And
We
then
never
a lot of them will cover their hair and all that stuff. So
Here's
you
what
could
like
totally
wouldn't
tell.
have fit over
Really
your hair.
popular 150 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that.
It was very fashionable 150 years ago. Very fashionable. Okay, we'll start with ladies first, I guess. Kristina.
Oh, fuck.
I'm a
Wow.
lady.
Brent just fell off his chair. But briefly, because I know how far you can go with this.
Okay.
Give us the impression of what it was like as a child being raised.
Okay, so I actually went to kindergarten in school.
Okay.
That's where we met.
That's actually where Kirsten and I met, was in kindergarten. And
Child
it was a really small country school, so there was like 100 people. It was very small. But I don't know why, but after that, my parents decided to bring us back to homeschooling. Because before that, all my siblings had been home. It was like just randomly 1 year that all of us went to school. And then, because we were homeschooled, then we went to school for a year, and then we were all homeschooled again.
And what number child are you?
Oh, I am the 11th child.
Okay.
In my family.
No, that can't be.
I guess that is an important thing to say.
Yeah, they don't really have these big families anymore.
Yeah, I am the youngest of 11.
Last one was twins.
Yeah. So this actually is a really important thing for my homeschooling experience because starting grade 1, when I was pulled out of school, we were feral, I guess.
I would agree.
It was, my parents are not structured. They are very disorganized. My mother's borderline hoarder. And my dad was a workaholic. So we were released into our lives where maybe 10 minutes we could be riled to do homework. Oh, no. So we were, and what we would do is we would sit there nicely until our mom went to help someone else, and then we ditch.
Didn't you guys sit right by the door?
Yeah, we sat right by our sliding door.
Things haven't changed really because we still keep Brad Bay with a whip and a chair, you know.
But the really nice thing with how my schooling went is that on the same property there were 2 houses, and my grandmother was in the other house, and she was actually a retired school teacher.
Oh,
she taught my mother.
Yeah, she did actually. Small community.
Wow. Okay.
So occasionally, didn't happen often, but we would go and she would help us with schooling. The schooling that I remember actually stuck with me was schooling that she taught me. Because she and my aunt also lived with her. And I consider my aunt my mother because she's the one that did the nurturing and the stability. So any like normal life we got with them, but any other time schooling was almost non-existent, because then when I was 7, my dad had 2 strokes and a seizure. So all the parenting was then left to my mom, because my dad was basically just an overgrown child, which was annoying, who could only use half his body. And so then after a year of that, my mom decided she couldn't school us all again, which she was never schooling us anyways. So she just realized she needed us out of the house. So then starting grade 5, I was actually back in the school system, which saved my life, because I went to grade 5 not knowing how to spell what, where, or when.
Okay. I remember this. Her spelling was atrocious.
Yeah, it's still really bad. It's way better now. I could barely read. Sitting at a desk all day was not good. I was not good at socializing with other people because we lived in the country and we weren't allowed to leave our property unless it was church.
Brent, what you might not know, she was actually wearing a shock collar.
Exactly.
For the longest time.
No.
As soon as she went off the property line, she was just be zapped right back in.
I'd be convinced after all that. I'd be convinced of that. I wouldn't even question it.
Yeah. So for me,
of course, a shock collar. Yes.
Going to school, grade 5. I was in school from grade 5 to grade 9. Mm-hmm. And then in grade 10, I actually decided to go back to homeschooling. Stupidest decision. Because also my home growing up was very abusive. Mm-hmm. Every single kind of abuse possible happened in my house.
Okay, well, don't deal into that right away, because we gotta let Brent.
Oh no! But it explains, But I'm not done with my homeschooling.
No.
Because this is just grade 10.
Just don't open too many cans of worms.
No. Yeah, I'm just trying to explain, because when I was, after being in the school system for so long, I experienced normal, healthy people. Then I was homeschooled in grade 10. So I was cut off from all my friends. Mm-hmm. I was cut off from everything, and I was just home with my abusive family. And so I deteriorated really fast. And then I got the opportunity to move in spend the summer with a cousin of mine in the Okanagan, which is about a 5 hours away from where I am currently. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, there's normal people again. And then I went back to school for half of grade 11, and then I deteriorated again mentally, and I actually dropped out of school. And then I was homeschooled again. And I eventually did graduate after I graduated college. Randomly. But yeah, that was my homeschooling journey.
Okay.
That's impressive, though. You went to college, though. That's
I did before I finished high school.
That's impressive, honestly. Yeah. That's really cool. I didn't.
It was clown college.
Yeah. So now I'm really fascinated to hear what your homeschooling experience was.
I think Brent just said, "Well, you know what? My homeschool is kind of normal now."
Yeah, it's not that cool. Yeah, never mind.
No. All right, your turn, Brent. Explain to us your miserable childhood.
Yeah, well, I was completely raised homeschooling. I did, I think I did 1 year. I did do kindergarten, and I want to say like third. It was like some off year, and I did. It was at a Christian school though.
Oh, okay.
Very heavily like serious. Like their teachers have been known for getting fired for seeing PG-13 movies.
Wow!
I was in the
wow.
So I take it evolution was not in the course.
Yeah. It's like,
but it's a serious
watching.
It's a serious question, because there's a lot of religious schools that are Catholic schools, right? You could have gone to a Catholic school.
Oh, right, and Catholics do actually accept.
They do accept evolution, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Weird.
I know,
and apparently they're the crazy ones.
I know.
That's funny. Yeah, and I remember like most of the science that I took was actually just that was it. It was the science courses that I took was just here's why science is wrong.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Right?
I grew up on Kent Hovind.
Oh God!
I feel like we're having a bonding moment between Brent and Kristina here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my book. I found my science book, And yeah,
You had a science book?
yeah, I still got some of my books from high school.
We didn't even have books.
They were reading chicken entrails and stuff like that.
This was a while ago. I don't know.
All right, so keep going with your journey there, buddy.
But no, yeah, it was mostly learning about, like, first of all, like, yeah, that science is wrong, and then the rest of it seemed to be all a bubble. Like, it was just trying to keep me inside. Like, I didn't, and it was weird because I'm such a social person, and I feel like I need to, like, talk to other people and just hang out and stuff. That's partially why I do the show, because I wanted to communicate, like, connect with other people in the community and stuff. And I feel like I need to do that. And it's weird because, like, when I was homeschooled, I remember having that need and, like, wanting to talk to other people, and I do it. When we went to we had all these weird functions that the school it was like a school group. It wasn't I actually have the website pulled up, but it's a homeschool group that kind of basically says you can teach your kid whatever the fuck you want. We're just here to make sure that the government allows your kids to pass, basically, and so we can get you a diploma and stuff like that, through this program and stuff. And I remember going to the functions, and the people there were just, I would, like, go try to, hang out with them and have fun with them and stuff. And it was like we were all terrified of everything, and they were just, like, complete. And I just wanted to hang out and talk to them, and they were just totally scared of me, and they were scared of each other. And it was because a lot of the rules because these were homeschool families from all different walks and stuff, right? So but it was all very rigid, but they all had very different I guess expectations for what is okay in their family, right? So it's all very, like, my family is this way, and so they would only have kids over to their house because they can kind of control the environment, and they wouldn't ever let their kids go to other people's houses. If that makes sense.
Sorry, I was about to ask you.
Go ahead.
Do you recall the school, and I could go for Kristina as well, when you guys were homeschooled, do you recall people actively trying to impress that you shouldn't hang with the other kids, or was it just like a normal side effect?
It was. I mean, it was like they tried to keep them almost apart because they were scared that somebody might influence their kid negatively, even within the homeschool group.
Well, Brent, when you were homeschooled, you were talking about the government a little bit ago. Did you have to take any basic tests from, I forget where you grew up, but did you have to take any basic tests to show that you were educated, that you could spell, and that you knew, basic facts that were taught in the public schools?
No, not really. No, we took the SATs at the end, but that was all for just it was required or whatever, and we had to take so we had to get at least up to stuff. But the SATs, like, that just scores, like, how smart you are. It doesn't, like, really put you on, like, oh, this person is, like, doing well in school, or this person has been educated by the public school system. It doesn't really govern that at all. It just says, like, whether or not you can go into a college and stuff, and here's where you're at. You know what I mean? Like, as far as. And we always scored very low on the SATs. In fact, they let us retake them several times. I think I retook it like 5 times.
Seriously?
Wow.
Well, did you have to go to any class that would help you take the SAT, that would train you how to take it, or did you just keep doing it until you finally passed?
Actually, there was this curriculum called Becca, and it was a Christian curriculum. And they actually had SAT prep courses to take, and it was, it's just like one of those books where you can fill it out as you go and stuff like that.
So it's almost like
I did take one of those.
So it was almost like an open book test, essentially.
Basically, yeah, it almost was. I mean, by the end, it would seem like, after I took the test for, like, a couple different times and stuff, and they got, like, approval to be able to do that and stuff, basically, if the kids don't pass, it's harder for them because, they're not learning from, like, a regular curriculum, because if you don't learn the right information, you can't fucking, how are you supposed to take the SATs?
So, it's amazing. It seems amazing to me that the only thing they focus on is you passing. I mean, you see that today in the work environment, they say, okay, you need your forklift ticket. And they'll say, okay, you need to do this. Just, okay, the answers are A, B, C, and just get it done so you can give you the ticket so you can get back to work. It seems to have the same kind of thing here, but they don't really care to see that the kids has actually learned anything. It's just pass the test so we can get the government off our back.
Yeah, it's like an OSHA test when you're at a company or something, and they're like, hey, look, we just got to make sure everybody passes. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
just sign the form and say they passed. You know what I mean, kind of thing.
Kristina, you were saying that you got your high school diploma. What did you have to do to get your diploma? Was the BC government or provincial, involved at all?
For the first part of grade 11, I was in school, so that's where I got there was like social studies? There was one that you needed.
Grade 11 was the social studies provincial exam.
Yeah, so I thankfully was in an amazing class in school for that. Otherwise,
you had cheater, didn't you?
I had cheater. Otherwise, I never would have passed that. But my homeschooling in my later years was through a distance learning course.
Really?
So I had actual teachers that I could communicate with. So it wasn't like a home based.
It was like online?
Yeah, it was like online school. Thankfully, unlike my younger years, if I had an issue, I could contact a professional and be like, okay, what does this mean? But all the tests, I would go to an actual high school, and someone would make sure I didn't cheat. So I would just take the normal tests people in school would take. For
somebody who hasn't been going through the environment of a high school, going to that building just to take a test must be somewhat intimidating.
I could imagine, because I did spend some time in school, it wasn't crazy for me. But I can just imagine, especially if you're in a homeschool environment where from my experience, growing up when I was younger in a homeschooling environment, it was very sheltered and like the world is scary. So I could imagine then going to a populated place, especially when you're not socialized. And you're just like, these people, there are so many people. What is this? It would be terrifying.
Okay, so let's open that bracket there. Both of you guys are basically saying you're sheltered.
Yeah.
They're encouraging you to be afraid of. What exactly are they telling you to be afraid of?
Well, for me, it was like right in the middle of the satanic panic. So,
oh man, dude,
I
couldn't watch Ghostbusters cartoon. Fuck the movie. I couldn't watch the fucking cartoon.
Really?
Wow.
My God.
Yeah, I got Alex Jones. Yeah. My parents are massive conspiracy theorists as well. So I was raised with Alex Jones constantly playing.
It's so shocking because, my first reaction is if I was to hear these two stories independently, I would have said Kristina was the American.
I know, right?
Right? I mean, her story seems almost like way worse than Brent's, and you would think, no, Brent had to be living in Canada. We don't have these crazy
there are bad Canadians too.
Apparently, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Brent? What were they telling you to be specifically? Well, give me an example. Were they saying, the satanic panic? Yeah, we know that, absolutely. Well, although give a few examples of that, but was that the only thing?
I mean, it was all things related to that. So anything like, because it's a kid, you know what I mean? And you're told, first of all, you're told that these things are real.
Yes.
So, and you're told that magic is real. So you're also, when you hear about something that's like a witchcraft or whatever, you're told that's real, and so that's kind of fascinating a little bit. You know what I mean? You're kind of like, oh, really? I can do like actually cool shit and not just speak nonsense for no reason. Like I can actually.
Yeah, I remember thinking that speaking in tongues was real. Yeah. I can remember thinking that I was actually like channeling like angels and shit.
Oh God!
I would do it all the time, and it was a weird mindset.
Oh God!
Yeah, because
I pay money to see that.
I could probably still do it, but I'm not doing it right now.
No, don't.
So Brent,
give us a taste.
You actually graduated high school being homeschooled. There wasn't a period where you actually physically attended classes in a public school.
No, yeah, I took my GED. I could have if I would have like stayed with it, but my parents like held me back a year, so like I would have been like like 19 when I graduated, so I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. Let me just take my GED and be done.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So now, being homeschooled and going through all of this, and now you've got your diploma, and you're out finding a job in the real world. How was that transition where you went from being homeschooled to being with people who had education through the public schools?
Good question.
Well, both my brothers were younger than me, and I didn't move out until I was 28, and they both did.
Wow.
You know? So I was terrified of the world, honestly.
I understand that feeling on such a deep level.
It was terrifying.
So was there a point when you went to apply for a job and you had to fill out an application that asked you about your schooling? Was that ever a problem?
It actually wasn't. Believe it or not, it's weird. Like, people in Florida are actually pretty pro homeschool. They're like, I just put that in big letters, homeschooled.
Okay.
With crayon. You know,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I got it.
matches what you learned. Yeah.
So you never had an employer question you or turn you down because he felt that your education would be lacking according to what you were supposed to perform on the job?
No, but I never really had high-skilled jobs, so...
Okay. No, I mean after high school.
Yeah, no, after high school, still no skills. That's...
Do you feel that by being homeschooled, you lost something that was fundamental to so many other people that did go to a brick-and-mortar school?
Oh, yeah, because both my brothers, they did go to public school. I think my parents were
Lucky
like, dude, this
bastards.
sucks, and put my two younger brothers in school. And they both graduated with AA degrees.
Oh,
like, they were
so
able
cool.
to take their college courses as they were going through high school.
Yeah.
Well,
It's almost like high school is better.
When you're saying AA degrees, you mean Alcoholic Anonymous here?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Just want to be sure.
Yeah. No,
I hear that they have that course in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back there because both of you guys are homeschooled. Did you guys notice a difference? Maybe not at the time, but when you look back now on your social development. I mean, were you like much more naive than the average person your age, or do you feel that you were impacted like a lot?
I personally wouldn't say I was more naive, but I know because I have a really interesting position where I was homeschooled for half of my schooling and went in school for the other half. I know that being homeschooled, I didn't know social interactions because I was in such a bubble with just my family in an abusive environment. So I would go with other people and be like, what is happening right now? Like, what do I do? What?
Was it difficult to pick up on social cues like body language and stuff like that?
No. Picking up on body language is actually something that was never an issue, but it was interpreting that body language.
Oh, okay.
It was because my formative years, I was in an environment where certain body language meant one thing, but then I went to school where that same body language meant something else. So, and I didn't actually realize that was an issue until I was an adult, where I would be like, oh my gosh, she just sighed. Oh no, what's happening? Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
I'll ask the same question to Brent, but I'll also add to that. Do you feel that sometimes you missed out on, like every generation gets some slang, some way of wording things? For example, I don't know if you were a child of if you were a child of the '80s, you might say something like "hey, radical" or something like that, right? I'm really dating myself here. Do you feel that you maybe you miss on some of that? But you're talking to kids your age, all of a sudden you realize and they're using slang that you have no idea what it means.
I'm actually going to interrupt you, not necessarily slang, but I would actually more go in
euphemism.
Yeah, well, like for me, it's like certain snacks. There were like premium in elementary school.
Fruit roll-ups.
Like fruit roll-ups. Like for kids my age, like we know what that is, or like the colored pens. and like stuff like that, where you joke about it with people your age, and everybody immediately understands what you're talking about.
So when the kids will say, "All right, we got some Sunny D's,"
exactly,
and you say, "Cool," and you have no idea what Sunny D is, you're thinking, "Oh, maybe the sun's outside." What about you, Brent?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Whether you were listening to conversations that were like people from another planet, because there you are, and how do you deal with knowing that you don't know what they're doing? Do you ask questions, or do you just
kind of nod along,
try to keep from being embarrassed and smile and get through it?
Well, I did actually, with the slang and stuff. Honestly, I did listen to, or I was actually allowed to watch Ninja Turtles. So most of my social cues came from Michelangelo. And he, I identified with him a lot.
Were you able to go to other kids' houses or sneak off to the library where you had, some books to read that were, normal for everybody else?
No, I really didn't. I had some neighborhood friends and stuff that I hung out with, but I'm pretty sure that my family made it very clear to them that they couldn't, they couldn't influence me on anything that was not our beliefs. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to go back on the whole fear thing, because I think we really, we dealt about it, the satanic panic and all that. But can you guys give me a couple of real examples of what you guys thought? I mean, did you actually think there were like wizards out there trying to cast spells on you, or etc.?
So I'm gonna just jump in here because there's growing up.
Yeah,
I 100% believed that Christianity was real. Everything about it, because I was also raised fundamentalist. So I was like, yeah, the earth is 6,000 years old. Of course it is. And like demons and angels are real. Of course they are. Hell is real. Heaven is real. So I can remember, and this is even actually after I was back in school, I can remember I had a friend die when I was 12. Mm-hmm. And I can remember being absolutely petrified that he was in hell.
Yeah.
And I remember spending lots of time just being like, oh my gosh, he's in hell. He's in hell. And that was like a massive weight on my little 12-year-old self. And like, I can actually remember when I became became atheist. I'm like, oh, well, okay, that solves that problem.
It's nice.
Oh, it's stayed with you for a while. What about you, Brent?
Yeah.
Well, what specific fears did you have as a child that were kind of imposed upon you?
Well, I was definitely fearful of any type of just anything in the outer world, because I just felt like it was just so, because the way they built it up, they made it like the outer world, like the world that
secular
outside.
Music.
Yeah.
We were never allowed to listen to secular music.
All you had was Christmas music.
Secular music was terrible. You're not allowed to listen to it, even if it's benign. Like, it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Or it's like, but the one thing that really hit me, as far as the interactions with other people, that I was so easily lied to.
Oh my gosh!
And I was convinced of anything. You know what I mean?
So
people tell me
you were naive,
stupid stories, and I was like, really? Holy shit! I can't believe that happened to you. I can't believe that a hand came out of the Ouija board and smacked your face into it. Grabbed your face and pulled it into the board. That's so.
That's
crazy.
really interesting. I know from my experience, that actually wasn't a massive part of I can remember being a kid in kindergarten being like, Santa's not real. What are you talking about?
Right, yeah.
And I was gullible for the small things, but I never really fell for bigger things, I guess. Except for religion, of course. But
right.
I can remember people being, I saw Bloody Mary, and it's like, no, you didn't. you're an idiot. Like, no.
That's I find that very interesting because I'm halfway between you two, obviously, because like Kirsten and Nancy were pretty much raised secular, and I was raised Catholic. So I remember, believing in hell and believing in demons. I remember even as a kid that I thought that I could naively pray. If I prayed enough for people in hell, they would like climb to purgatory.
No, I 100% believed in prayer.
And if I prayed for people in purgatory, they would be moved to heaven. Like a bonus.
Yeah, totally.
A bonus step. That was my naive young mind. But at the same time, I also recall my parents warning me about satanic cults and the satanic panic and all that, and me just rolling my eyes at them too. But you guys, this was a real threat for you in your world.
Well, it's actually interesting because the satanic panic didn't really touch my household.
No, that was before your time.
Because, I think it also was influenced with having so many siblings. I had adult siblings living in my house. So, and this is a weird conundrum that my family experienced because they were super religious. But then at the same time, we were watching Resident Evil and CSI and like...
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a weird cognitive dissonance.
Well, yeah. So I grew up like watching really violent movies where like... But then I was also like, don't listen to secular music. So it's like, what? And like, let's all sit around and listen to Focus on the Family. So it was a very, very weird...
Is that just your parents' hypocrisy? They just didn't like to watch those shows, but they didn't want you to watch it.
Well, it wasn't my parents. It was my older brother.
No.
I had an older brother that lived in the home, and he was he had a lot of issues. A lot of issues. And he was the one that would bring all these movies in the house, and they just couldn't deal with him. Ugh. So, like, they basically let him get away with everything.
Oh, man.
And he was also very abusive as well. So it was, and then also, like, because my dad was basically not a parent, so he wasn't able to control any of the situation. His method of control was just throwing things at you.
Oh, wow.
To be like, don't do that. Throw things at you.
I was watching a video the other day, and it happened to be a homeschool child, and the parents are there, and I think it was from CNN, and the reporter is asking some very, very, very basic questions, and extremely basic, and we were talking about this kid is probably like 9-10 years old, right? So the reporter asked her at some point, some very basic math questions like 5 times 5, something that a kid that age should be able to answer very quickly and naturally. And that kid could not answer to save her life.
Yeah, I didn't know math either.
And then the parent jumped in and basically said, no, we discussed Jesus a lot. And I'm just wondering, was that your experience as well? If was that you as well? If some reporter would have come to you and said, Brent, 5 times 5 when you were 10, would you have had to say until, or would you actually be able to answer that question?
I probably would have struggled with that. Math was the toughest one.
Even if it's not math, a simple question of history. 5 times 5 is
pretty easy. I don't know.
Yeah, but a simple question of history or geography or something like that.
Yeah.
It was
stuff like, especially geography.
If someone had been like, hey, point to India.
I would have sucked. I still would suck at that. I don't think I could do that.
I think most Americans would.
Really?
Today. Yeah, Americans have a real hard time.
So Brent, at what point did you, if at all, when did you start to learn on your own some of the things that you missed in homeschooling?
Well, honestly, it was like just recently, really, because I kind of just I put the way that Christianity and religion kind of works is that it makes you start out broken.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the problematic aspect of that is that you kind of accept it after a while. You kind of just say, okay, I can't do that, and you just don't. You know what I mean? You just don't even try because you're like, dude, I can't do that, and I'm just not smart enough to do that because I'm broken. I'm just not made to be able to do that. and you kind of just, go through life that way until it's almost forced upon you. But the fact that, when I finally became an atheist about 2 years ago, I started thinking like a lot. It was it almost gave me a headache for like the first month and a half that I was an atheist, because I was just thinking and learning so much.
Totally.
And it was just like my mind is a vacuum that I'm just taking in so much, because I wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow any information into my head that wasn't already part of the system that I had decided was right for me. You know what I mean?
I know for myself, before I became an atheist, it was almost like anything that is against your belief system is from the devil. It's the devil trying to trick you. It's the devil with his scientists and the people, like, everyone just doesn't understand. They're being tricked, and because they went to school.
Right. Yeah. School is this like mind control thing, and you don't realize that you were in the mind control thing, and the school is just teaching you how to fucking think.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, that's the mind control over here. And it's like, and they do that. They flip everything. And it's like, it's the way they do it. They oh no, that's brain and that's mind control. But yet I've heard like my mom say, oh, I had to wash my mind with the word of God. It's like, really? You just said the words, wash my mind.
Flip it around, brain wash.
Yeah. I find the longer I am an atheist, the more I find these words really, really creepy, especially when they say something, bathe in the blood of Christ. It's like, that's total cold words right there. It's like, God, that's a horrible image. Bathe in the blood? This is supposed to save you?
So I'm super curious, because I know for myself, when so even when I was in school, I still had those beliefs, like science is evil. And like I still was in that mind frame. And also at home, I was still listening to Alex Jones. And I know.
I got into him for a while too.
It's amazing you guys made it this far.
I know. And I was still like obsessed with Kent Hovind. I was still in that mind frame, even though I was in school. And when I then became an atheist and realized, oh my gosh, I know nothing. And then through starting to learn more, I realized that I absolutely love science and I love biology and evolution. So I'm curious if after you realize that there's so much more information that you just didn't have access to, has there been anything that you've really found yourself loving that you never had the chance to even realize you loved as a child and in homeschooling?
That's a good question. Or is he still swayed? Does he still think of himself as unworthy and unteachable?
Right. No, I honestly, now I love more than anything. And I think I realized this while I was still a Christian, but I was going through my, smoking pot bunch phase. Philosophy. I love philosophy.
Nice.
Really?
Like your last episode was awesome. I love that stuff. I love just talking about shit that just makes you think for no reason.
Yeah. See, mine's psychology. I'm obsessed with psychology.
Yes, you are.
Psychology's great too. Yeah.
That's another fascinating thing. I'm just going to jump onto this for a second. Coming from such a interestingly broken background that I do, my brain is such a plaything of psychology. It's been fascinating to realize all these known facts of the world that I just didn't know existed and be like, oh my gosh, that explains so much about myself.
She actually electroshocks herself on a regular basis.
Hey, don't kink shame me. Yeah, so that's so interesting that you were able to realize that you had a fascination for philosophy even while you were still in that religious mind frame.
Yeah, well, I was, like I said, I was like doing like smoking pot, and I kind of left everything, and I just went full flat. I remember I even said that I was an atheist, even though I didn't understand what it meant or anything like that. I just was like, I'm an atheist because I'm mad I was mad at God. Like I was the character from all the David A.R. White movies that was just mad at God. And I left and went and started drinking and smoking and doing all this stuff, and it caused a lot of conversations to come up, and I just was like, dude, the Bible makes so much sense. You're stupid. You're stupid for not understanding how simple this is. Okay, look, you can't go into heaven with sin on you, so you gotta get Jesus to put his blood on you so that you can get into heaven. It's simple.
I have a question on that line. Did you ever read the Bible?
Yeah, I actually did. I've read it like 3 times, and I've read it again now as an atheist.
I never made it through the creation story.
Really?
Nope.
It's
until I was an atheist.
It's a tough read. It's a tough read.
I was like,
it is
what?
tough, especially. And what killed me was that I've read it so many times, and then like the things that I didn't catch, where you're just like, God didn't make the sun until the 4th day.
Yes.
The 4th day.
Or let's smash
and it says
this
it's
baby
evening and
against a
morning
rock.
3 times.
Yeah. So when you read, mine, what struck me is when you read the 4 Gospels and you read them not side by side but back to back, but you don't realize the differences they have in each one of them.
Totally.
You don't
And
actually catch
it's
them.
actually really interesting you talking about thinking you were an atheist while you were growing up. Because for myself, I didn't even know what an atheist was. I legitimately didn't realize that people could not believe in Christianity. I didn't know that there were other religions.
Wow.
I didn't know, like I knew about Catholicism.
Well, you knew about Satanism.
Well, no, I didn't. I didn't know about Satanism.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't know. Like I thought.
But you knew there were in your world. You knew there were people that were quote unquote tricked by Satan. And believe his words. Right?
I didn't. We never really. I never really knew that, like, of this, people that worship Satan.
Okay.
Like, I knew about, Satan's tricking people, but I never grew up in a, like, there are Satanists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I also didn't know about Hindu people. I didn't know, like, I knew that people could grow up not learning about God, so you had to tell them about God. But I never knew that people just didn't believe in a God. If that makes that makes sense.
So you thought I believed in God?
It's not that I thought you believed in God, but I didn't. It was a really weird mind space because like I didn't realize people could have the information and not believe in God. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like what's that? The Psi or whatever. That
Psi Brugate.
Yeah, he says like everybody believes in God.
Yeah, like that's very much where I was at. Like, everyone has a whole God-shaped hole in their heart.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we said that a lot too.
Yeah, totally. And like God, like imprinted himself on humanity, and like so it was very much.
And nature speaks his name.
Exactly.
And stuff like that,
so like everything. Very much cognitive confirmation bias. So like, I was very sheltered in. I had an atheist cousin that I didn't know was an atheist. I just knew he didn't come around to family get-togethers.
That's all I knew.
And because my family was very cult-like in that they were very much very close and very. We all believed the same thing, but not cult-like. And there was one person we like had above everyone else, like an actual human. But it was very much like not interacting with other people while I was young. Like I think my first friend I had, I was how old was I? This is like. After Kirsten, because Kirsten was my best friend in elementary school.
Thank you.
But then I must have been like 7, 8 before I had a friend. It was Of course, I had so many siblings and I had twin sisters, so I didn't care. Yeah, but we were very,
you got like 10
very
people you could hang out with
down at our house. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
It's interesting that I see, especially when you're talking, and I can't help but think that you guys were persuaded by the old the imagery, the coincidences. They say, of course you can see God in the works, because not necessarily the argument from ignorance that they use a lot, but you see God in his works, because how else would you explain this?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I have a really good analogy for how I think my quote unquote faith stood up against reality. Because for me, we were taught that God is in all the little things as well. So when I couldn't find my shoe, I'm like, God, please help me find my shoe. And then I would obviously find my shoe because it didn't disappear into the void. And I'm like, oh, yay, God answers prayers.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
every
Exactly what I mean.
single thing, like, oh, God, let there still be milk. Oh, God, there's milk. Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you can.
And so all those little things build up.
Count the hits, forget the misses.
So when the big things happen and you're like, God, don't let my dog die, and it dies, your built up faith takes that hit, but the next day it's built back up because every single second you're doing another thing that builds up that faith.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost like you keep pouring the faith in.
You
even
have
when
the
there's
slow constant drip, and every once in a while you open the tap, but you only hold the tap open for a second.
Yeah.
You're not going to drain the
yeah,
thing.
okay. Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I get the symbolism. Was it something very similar in your side as well for Brent?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I for a time I remember thinking, because I had like night terrors and things like that, I remember my mom would tell me, no, it's just that you have a sensitivity to the spiritual world.
I never got that. I never got that.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And then I'm terrified of everything.
I remember. I hate to say that because it's insidious, but it's not insidious on purpose. I mean, his mom's not doing this to harm him, but she is by saying that.
Yeah.
And she didn't mean to.
No, exactly. She didn't mean to. Her intentions were pure, I'm sure. But at the same time, she's just reinforcing the fear.
Right. Yeah, and she doesn't even realize she was.
No,
doing
exactly.
That,
she doesn't realize
it's
it.
like, no, yep, the demons in your dreams are real. But, it's cool because you got Jesus. As long as you have Jesus right.
See, and I think there's an interesting difference between our homeschool experience, because it sounds like from your homeschool experience, your parents were very involved in your childhood. See, for mine, my parents were almost never there, whether my mom, because she was reading a book or watching a movie and ignoring us all, and my dad was at work. So for me, I never really got those things reinforced because I never had those interactions with my parents. I was playing on the trampoline, running around in circles for hours. Literally happened.
Were you running like a horse?
Yes, I was.
So, hold on. You're saying that somebody was holding the rope at one end and just twirling her around
I was just on all fours. And
I would have paid good money to see that.
So for me, I never got the opportunities to have those things reinforced. Whereas I feel from you, when you would have a nightmare, you would go to your parents. See, for me, when I would have a nightmare, it's not something you'd go to the parents about. Because my parents were very much not emotionally available. I remember I mentioned my friend died. When I was 12, my friend died.
Oh God!
When my friend died, I didn't go to my parents. I actually went and sat at the top of the stairs, crying my eyes out. And for almost a decade afterwards, I thought I was a horrible human being for even searching out for comfort.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I was the scum of the earth because I even I'm so selfish because I even wanted comfort.
And now you're on the Atheist Podcast.
Exactly.
You are the scum of the earth at this point.
Exactly. So for I definitely think that is a pivotal difference in our experiences.
He had parental support. He had emotional support.
Yeah. See, for me, that was my aunt. And that's why I consider my aunt my mother. But growing up, my actual mother would get very toxic if I spent too much time with my aunt.
Was there any perceived emotional support from Jesus when you guys were in the faith? I mean, did you guys feel that Jesus actually had your back?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember.
Well, he helped you find that shoe.
Exactly. I think for those things it was, but I don't think I ever. Oh no, actually, yeah, he was, because I can remember crying myself to sleep, talking to him.
Okay.
And
And what about you, Brent? Jesus is your pal?
Same thing. I would just talk to, and it's funny because I still do that. I still talk, but I'm just talking to myself now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk.
I talk to myself too.
It seems weird when somebody walks in and they're like, "Oh no, I'm just talking to myself." But that's how I developed that, was just because they say to pray without ceasing, and so I would just talk all the time, and it was very it is kind of comforting, and it's still comforting, honestly. I talk to myself and it's comforting. It's like I can organize what I'm going to do. I can organize like my thoughts and everything and kind of just say out loud like what I'm thinking about what's going on and stuff. It's comforting. But the fact that you add this supernatural aspect to it where this person is actually listening to you and they're this entity that loves you and they want the best for you and all this this and that.
And that's another super
it feels
toxic
helpful.
thing, that is God is involved in your life, so everything that happens is God's plan. So when horrible things happen, it's God's plan.
Yeah.
Right.
So that for me was super toxic.
Yeah, and that's so damaging to just so many things. Like, because it basically makes you, you just are just like, because you have this idea that ultimate justice will be taken care of in the end, means that you don't have to work towards getting justice now for anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, whatever, God will get them in the end.
And for a
and
practical example of this, I had a sister, there was an anonymity in this because I have so many, but who was sexually abused when she was young. And my mother found out about it, didn't report it, didn't do anything. She said, God will serve him his justice.
Yeah.
So nothing was done.
I hate the Christian mentality because it's especially in this day and age with climate change. Exactly what you hear.
My mom doesn't think climate change is real.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about climate change.
So I gave her a Costco book about how we're fucking up the world.
You don't need to worry about climate change because God's going to intervene at some point.
Yeah, or
it's because
the world will
God,
never flood again, and everything is in God's plan. So we'll be raptured before then.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's another thing that was massive in my family, the rapture.
Yeah. Right.
The rapture was massive in my family.
Wow.
Dude, there was a couple times. Get this. There was a couple times when I called home, and I just had like a weird feeling. I remember, and I called home. And everybody always answers the phone. There's some, I had like 4 siblings and my parents. And so like there was, or 3 siblings. I'm sorry, there's 4 of us. But there was 3 siblings. And I'd always call the house and somebody would always answer. And I remember several times, there was like a couple of times that I called home and when I was a Christian and stuff. And I remember being terrified that the rapture had happened and they had been taken away, and I would be looking around and there wouldn't be that many people around, and I remember just seeing like confirmation by we just like, oh man, that person looks confused, they're probably looking for somebody too, and you're just like, oh my god, the fucking rapture just happened. And I was like terrified.
Yep.
Yeah, because I could see why it's terrifying. I mean, you got left here and Kirk Cameron went to heaven.
Yep.
What the hell is that?
Right.
Let's just say, in Christian homes, you can't just drop your clothes anywhere.
That should be so funny. Christian home, you just see clothes all over the place.
You walk into a room. No. It's just laundry day.
Oh boy, I get I get a feeling that it's an easy question for you guys to answer. I'm pretty sure you'll say you would not. If a parent today was considering homeschooling their child, I'm pretty sure you'd recommend not to do so.
It totally depends for me.
But
there are some people who do so much better homeschooling.
Okay, fine.
But you need to have smart parents.
For the average person who considers doing something like that, especially for a religious reason, give me a...
Oh, for a religious reason. 100% no.
Give me a 30-second spot reason. Don't go into a huge... You're talking to a stranger. They don't want to hear your life story. So why not?
For me, I would say that the only reason you would ever consider homeschooling a child is for any learning discrepancies than normal. But with schools nowadays, especially Canadian ones, there are so many resources to help mitigate any disabilities, any disorders, that anything that a child would find difficult about school, you can work through. And what you gain from a brick and mortar school, the life experiences, the life relationships, the valuable social interactions, you will never, ever get outside of that. And your child, if they are homeschooled, without those interactions, they will lose a fundamental part of human development.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And I went to school to be an educational assistant, so I know that.
How about yourself, Brent? What is your little piece of advice there?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a bad idea, but unless, like she said, it's for a specific learning disability of some kind, and the parents would need to still get probably a couple tutors easily, But I would say that the school provides one thing that I've noticed, and for me, and it was like it took me forever to be able to do this, but was just to go out in confidence. I know that sounds weird.
I totally interact with other people with confidence.
Yeah. It's so hard when you don't understand like how, and it's weird because like when you're a Christian, you have these like little things that you say and stuff that you just don't realize people are just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you're like, yeah, man, because like I was watching TV, dude, and it was like the Learning Channel, and the Lord just showed me, the dolphins are just like they're almost, they're amazing or whatever, it's like the Lord showed me that like through dolphins how marriage can like really last if you make it or whatever,
or God showed me that He wants my life journey to take this path.
Yeah,
and people are like, yeah, dolphins are wait, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
What?
The fuck?
And then you're stuck talking to yourself yet again, right?
Yeah. I'm like, hold on, was that no, shut down. Pretend like you're sleeping.
See, I have a problem because I'm French, and when I start talking to myself, I start talking snooty to myself.
Oh my god.
And then usually an ambulance shows up at that point.
So I definitely personally think that if anyone does have a child and they're considering homeschool, make sure it is not a snap decision. Make sure you research it. Make sure you research anything, like if you're going to be going through a distance education like program. Like, it's not an easy out.
No.
If your kid's having problems in school, it's not an easy out. Like, you have to deal with what's going on. You can't just... Because I know for my sister in grade 10, she was going through a fuck ton of issues. And my mom was like, oh, it's school. We'll just pull her out of school and she'll be fine. Not realizing that it's literally home life that's her issue.
So let's add more of that.
I actually have a part of a book, my school book, I wanted to read real quick. If that's all right.
Of course.
Please do.
So this is my science book, and I'm going to put some music on just to give some ambiance to the way it sounds. So let's see how this works.
The suspense is killing me.
What the Bible tells us about God and how He created us is very different from what the theory of evolution says.
Yes.
Therefore, no one can really believe what the Bible tells us about creation and also believe in evolution. It may be a surprise to a lot of people, but neither can one really believe in the facts of science and believe in evolution. Evolutionists claim belief in evolution because science supports evolution. To say this is to be either ignorant of the truth, the real facts of science, in parentheses, or deny creation no matter what the facts say. Because in order to believe in creation, one has to believe in God. There are people who don't want to believe in God and what the Bible tells us. That's because they want to believe because their belief would require accountability. No matter what evolutionists want to believe, however, the facts of science do not support evolution. On the other hand, there is a mountain of scientific evidence that supports creation.
Oh, man.
I feel like you need to switch a few words around there.
You should have finished that with, "This is Robert Stack. These are unsolved mysteries."
Oh, it's totally...
Very good. Wow. That
was beautiful.
Oh, boy.
Brent, thank you so much for joining us today, man. That was fantastic. We really, really enjoyed that. But for our audience, if people want to find out more about you and the adventures with Nikki and what you do at Unapologetix with an X, where can they find you?
Okay, so we are on pretty much everything. We're on Facebook. If you want to search our page, it's Unapologetix, the atheist response to apologetics. If you want to look at, we're on Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, iTunes. We're on all the things. A Google search will help. But you got to make sure to correct it if you do it, and then it's because it'll try to find Unapologetics with a CS. And so you got to correct it and go, no, I actually meant
unapologetic.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean you don't want to go listen to some neo-Nazi shit?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a Nazi program. Yes.
Little known fact, actually.
From Florida. Like, it's so weird.
Little known fact, Brent and Nikki are on everything, like you said. So much that I saw them appear on Toast the other day.
Why wouldn't you?
Brent,
that's butter. We're chilling.
Brent, thank you so much for being with us. But before I let you go, I gotta have you say, hi, this is Brent Lee of Unapologetix, and I took a left in the valley.
Hi, this is Brent Lee of Unapologetix, and I took a left at the valley.
Fantastic. And that was Brent Lee of Unapologetix. Always a fun time.
Hell yeah.
It's amazing. I thought your stories would be so much more similar than they actually were.
They're very different.
They're very different.
So different. Oh my goodness.
You kind of build a bit of an idea that abuse from the let's face it. Let's call it child abuse. It really is that.
Me?
No, not just you.
Child abused?
Well, if you've abused any children, I'm not sure of. No, that's not true. That's not true. She hasn't done anything like that. No. I'm just saying that.
My family doesn't let me around their kids because I make them less homophobic.
Yeah, exactly. You're the evil atheist now.
Exactly.
But it's amazing, of course, and you feel bad because at the same time, it's like you want to. It's a question I forgot to ask, and I should have asked. It's like, how angry do you get when you realize you're on the end of this, and you want, in a way, you kind of want vengeance, but you can't because the reason they did it was actually. Out of what they thought was best for you. Right?
I know for myself, I'm not mad at my parents because I went to school eventually.
Yeah.
I would have been such a different person if I was never in school. Like, I am horrified to meet that person.
I love the way you said feral. That was great descriptive.
Was feral.
That was a great descriptive.
I was.
Yeah.
No, you haven't heard all the stories.
I was feral.
Feral.
And I actually, I don't know. I don't feel bad looking back. Me, person not in school, didn't have a great life. But, that made me who I am today.
Yeah.
So it's
silver lining.
Well, yeah.
And I love who you are today.
Me too. But I would never wish that on anyone else. Ever.
Yeah.
Because going to school, being with other people my age, getting out of the house was such a lifesaver.
Yeah. So school saved your life.
To an aspect. I wouldn't say school itself saved my life. The people I interacted with at school saved my life.
And that's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with us, being on the show, and thank you for Brent Lee for being with us on the show, and thank you for listening. You can find us at leftofthevalley.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter at LATV Podcast. You can find us on... Geez, where can you find us? Wherever you find us, give us a 5-star review. Yeah. It helps others find the show. You could be like our friend Freethinker215 and become a patron, where you get some nice little goodies and a look behind the scenes.
There is so much stuff that we talk about that doesn't get on air. That is so. If you enjoy our random chit chat, you will love our Patreon episodes
for sure. Yeah. So just go to patreon.com/LATV. Okay, coming up. Next week, we'll be talking to Michael Sparks and Jeremy Montanez. We'll be doing a whole Bernie political show. That should be interesting.
I am here for that.
We'll be talking to the people of Believe It or Not with Trevor Pullman. We'll also be talking to the people from Secular Soup with Amy Withowi. Hope I'm saying that right. And we'll be talking to the guys from Godless Revolution with Dan Ellis.
I'm excited.
And then in September, we'll be talking to Evidence-Based Eating with Dal Unneth. And we'll be talking about The Vanishing of the Bees with Mary May Hyman.
That should be a good one.
That should be a good one, absolutely. They're all good ones. And we'll be talking to everyone's agnostic with Marie and the Free Thought Prophet with James McGaffick. And then, of course, we roll to October. We'll be talking about A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy with Mike Bowler.
That's going to be fun, especially with my Alex Jones background.
Yes. And Ask an Atheist with Sam Mulvey. And we'll also have our Halloween special coming down the pipe.
Which I have started writing my scary story for.
Okay, perfect.
I'm gonna scare you guys.
We'll try to
with
get
reality.
one from Seth Andrews as well as maybe our Satanist friend Liv Star. Maybe she'll write a solo story too. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Anything else I need to...
Read a science book.
Yeah.
Or just read a book.
No,
you can always...
Not that book.
Specifically a science one.
Yeah.
Learn some stuff.
And don't forget our email is left@valley@outlook.com. I don't know where my brain is right now.
Not here.
Blah, blah, blah. Not here. It's the end of the show. It's time to shut it down.
It's bedtime.
It is.
Not for me.
Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Love you all.
Non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance, and you just call it.
And like you and I discussed, you and I are doing this, of course, and I'm glad to have you on the show. But in return, you will stop sending us those dick pics, right?
Hey, he has a very beautiful dick.
I don't have any. I can't. Yeah, I mean, I can't promise.
Sorry.
I mean, you're asking a lot. It's like a blood cousin. You're asking for.
Nancy's done so many nuclear facepalm by now. It's like she's got
She's so done with us by this point.
Sorry.
You still love us, right, Nance?
There was a time in my family where one of my sisters had to. Her bed was a bathtub.
Oh my god!
Hold on. What?
That sounds like a Jeff Foxworthy joke. If your bed was a bathtub, you might be a redneck.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, like I said, send her a nice hug and kiss, and maybe a little bit of groping from.
Oh my god, Kevin!
You got it. You got to do it just for you. I'll tell her this is for Kevin.
But you gotta make awkward eye contact while you do it.
Yeah, but no, hold on. If he's gonna grope her on my behalf, it better be nice and smooth, man. Okay, I've got a reputation to maintain
here. You gotta make it super awkward.
You can't pull some kind of move a teenager, 16-year-old would pull. This is stupid.
Lick your lips while you do it.
Oh no!
And a little wink, put the tongue on the lip and a little wink at the same time. Like, hey, baby.
This is what happens when we're here at night.